I've spent 40 years mainly in procurement and supply chain at organizations like Toyota, Rex and Beverage Can, DS Smith Packaging. Um, I was the largest buyer of aluminium in the world, 1 million tons a year. And there's only 26 million tons a year sold. So that's a lot of aluminium. Also spent a lot of time in the 90s in Toyota, where my whole career and philosophy and thinking about supply chain was developed and evolved. Now, in the early 2000s, I felt like I was ready to become chief procurement officer. I just want to share with you a little story about the importance of sometimes taking a sideways move is important for your growth. And I felt I was ready to become the chief procurement officer, and the CEO told me, "Alex, you're not ready." And I said, "Well, I'm ready. I'm going to leave then." And he said, "Well, do not leave. Let me help you get ready." And I moved across to sales for 6 years, and I ended up becoming the sales and marketing director for Rex and Beverage Cans. So I was selling aluminium beverage cans to Coca-Cola, Heineken, AB InBev, Red Bull, and I was sitting in front of different procurement and supply chain teams from around the world. And every day it was like going back to school for me. I was learning from them. And after 6 years, I was invited back to become group CPO. And when I look back on that time and that conversation I had with the CEO, when I said I was ready and he said, "You're not ready," I have to say he was right. The things that I learned during my time in sales prepared me to be able to sell concepts internally, because a big part of the procurement and supply chain role is actually selling ideas and strategies and concepts, not just to the C-suite, but also to other parts of the business. And most of the time, they don't want your help. They don't need your help. They don't think they need your help anyway. And having that skill is really quite profound. So I'd recommend anybody that gets the chance to have a sideways or lateral move during their career to learn more skills. So just think about it before you say no. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about future proofing supply chains and the power of collaboration. Now, collaboration is a big part of what I do now. I actually retired from the corporate world 2 years ago, but felt unfulfilled and decided that I wanted to build something. I'd never built something personally. And I was frustrated with some of the educational bodies. I was frustrated with some of the networks. I was frustrated with LinkedIn, and I decided to do something about it. So, along with my co-founder, Harold Hendricks, we built and launched almost a year ago now the Alchemy Network. This is a network for people like you. It's a network for procurement, supply chain, and sustainability professionals. Everybody on there is from that background, and it brings together everyone from student to CPO and people from academia to business to charities and NGOs. So it's a place where you can continue your learning. I really support what the guys here do at GSDC, and continual learning and development is an important part of your career, and the fact that you're connected with them and listening to me today is another part to that. Now, the Alchemy Network, I've put the link in the chat, but it's www.alchemynetwork.com. It is free to join. There is no membership charge, and you can absolutely become a member today, either by downloading the app or the SQR code. So I'm going to get straight on to the presentation today. All right, so let's talk about future-proofing your supply chains. And I think the important thing to remember here is, what have we been through during this period? And I think back to 2019, when I was traveling in Singapore and COVID hit, and the world changed during that period. It was starting to get a bit strange in Singapore. They were starting to take temperatures, but by the time I'd returned back to the UK, we were in lockdown, and the whole world had begun to change. So some of the things that we've been through, really, we've been through COVID. We've had a global shipping crisis. Um, we had a significant impact on e-commerce and shipping as a result of COVID. We had a truck driver shortage. We had energy supply disruption and huge energy price spikes that we've seen mainly in Europe. We've seen the sad war that has sucked a lot of countries into it between Russia and Ukraine with their invasion of Ukraine. There is a resulting food crisis, and I was directly impacted by that, not from a food perspective, but in the manufacturing of cardboard. We used to spend 300 million euros a year on starch, and starch comes from wheat, it comes from corn, it comes from potato, pea, tapioca, and that was heavily impacted across the world by the actions of Russia and Ukraine. So a supply chain can be um, indirectly affected by something that you wouldn't suspect. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what organizations did during that time. This is the energy price spike. It was unprecedented what we saw in Europe before the Russia-Ukraine war. We had not seen a price of gas in Europe of more than 27 euros a therm. The average for the preceding 5 years was 17 euros. At its peak, it hit 353. So that's almost 2,000% higher than the 5 year average before. And organizations were affected incredibly by that. Individuals were affected and households were affected. And we've started to see a growing number of natural disasters that are hitting the world now, and some areas of the globe are becoming almost uninsurable because of what's going on. And and then another one, rising inflation, which has been really affecting businesses. We're seeing a slowdown of that now, but I think we're entering into another period in some countries where some items are going to be hit by incredible inflation, but more because of tariffs. And then things like the Suez Canal, where suddenly your supply chain gets hit with a 7 week detour, and trying to manage that within your supply chain. So what are some of the things that we've seen, and what have we done? I think the first one is around demand volatility. Now, we've always had demand volatility and unpredictable consumer behavior, but the economic fluctuations that we've been seeing recently, shifting trends, geopolitical events, and more recently tariffs, we're seeing a much more dramatic shift in demand. And how you manage that needs to be clearly thought of. You look at some of the tariffs now that are going on. The 125% that Trump announced on China yesterday, and the reciprocal, I think it's 84% that China have put on to North America. That's pretty much stopping trade. The resulting effect of that is everything is suddenly going to go on pause. And we will talk about what the effect of that has on things like shipping, on things like dumping, on things like people rethinking about what their supply chain should look like. So some of the preparation you need to do is you need to invest in demand forecasting tools. And this is where AI and generative AI is taking its opportunity now. It's far more accurate than anything that any of our algorithms that we've been writing on Excel for a long time are capable of doing. It's looking at predictions. It's feeding information from every angle, and it is trying to come up with what is the solution. But there's also some incredible tools out there. One of the companies I do some work with is OptiLogic. OptiLogic has amazing technology when it comes to rethinking, reimagining, and redesigning your supply chain based on the inputs from all of your key factors. The next one is supply chain disruptions. So we've got natural disasters, we've had pandemics, we've got geopolitical tensions disrupting production or transportation, things like the Suez Canal that we've discussed already. And now again, throw on top of that tariffs. This week, Jaguar Land Rover said that they are pausing the shipping of any of their vehicles to North America for now. So if you are expecting to take delivery of a Range Rover or a Range Rover Sport or a Jaguar I-Pace in North America, it's not going to be delivered because as a result of the 25% tariffs, they have decided, let's pause for the moment. Now, for them as a company, their cars are sold out around the world. There is a 7-8 month waiting list on many of them. So they've decided, in effect, to move their sales opportunity to areas where there isn't a tariff. And we're going to see a lot of that over the coming months, where people look to adjust and change and review their supply chains as these things take effect. And the largest area really is going to be between North America and China. And there is a lot of nearshoring that organizations have already done. But some of the preparation that large organizations should have been doing from last November really is around diversifying supply geographically, increasing your inventory and putting buffers in place. Apple last week shipped 5 full aeroplanes of iPhones from China and India into North America to try and beat the tariffs. And it seems ridiculous to think that you can afford to air freight iPhones, but given the fact that there is 125% tariffs being put in place, it's an incredible impact on that company. We saw Apple's share price drop ridiculously during this week. Now they've announced now that they're looking to increase production of the iPhone and other products in India, where they've already got a growing presence with over 5 large factories there. But what you'll see is they'll adjust their supply chain. So it won't be China to North America anymore and India to Europe. It will be India to America and China to Europe. And they will adjust their supply chain. But this isn't one company doing this. This is hundreds of companies doing this. And as a result of that, you see big swings in what is happening in your supply chain. So it's almost like wargaming. You need to get yourself in a room and think about what could happen. How can we avoid it? What are the options that we have? And how can we take advantage of this? You know, in every crisis, there is always an opportunity to think about what is the opportunity for today. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is labor shortages. Now, we have seen across the last 5 years a number of labor shortages, and especially in retail and logistics and manufacturing. North America, people were shifting jobs for $2,000-3,000 signing on bonuses because they were sold out. Now we see the North American government wanting to move a lot of what they call unwelcome aliens back to the country that they came from. So there's an increase factor on their labor shortages. And at the same time, they're looking to nearshore jobs from countries where products are being made back to America, you know, to make America great again. The question I have is, who's going to do the work? Because it is almost, it's a country of almost full employment. So you have to think about the impact of some of these things. And what you will see is a movement of products around the world, and supply chains are going to adjust incredibly. So patterns of movement that you've been enjoying for a while, pricing when it comes to shipping and moving from one continent to another, they're all going to change, because the pattern of movement today is not going to be the pattern of movement in 6 months, in 12 months. So you have to be thinking about what is the impact on my business? What is the impact on my supply chain? And what opportunities do I have as a result of that? Um, when it comes to automation and the use of AI, it is a great opportunity, but I would argue that it is going to be removing some of the repetitive activities from within the supply chain. And if I look back at my role in procurement and supply chain, um, my hope is that the job is really exciting of the future. That all of the things that have been unenjoyable over the last 25 years of invoices that don't match and late requisitions and laborious paperwork, that's going to be done and taken care of by AI and AI patterns. So that's exciting. It's going to leave you with with a strategic opportunity as an individual. And those people that embrace technology and AI at the time are going to grow. They're going to blossom. So that would be my second encouragement to you. Transport and logistic constraints, port congestion, and driver shortages. So again, all organizations are currently rethinking about where they're moving products. And if you've ever visited a port and seen the shipping, the port um, of Southampton in the UK has something like 48,000 um, containers going through per day. A ridiculous amount of containers. If suddenly half of the customers that are moving product through it pause or accelerate or want to move in a different direction, or suddenly you've got a huge amount of paperwork to do associated with tariffs that weren't there before, then that's a real issue. So here you've got to partner with reliable logistics providers. You've got to leverage your knowledge and transport modes that you have. You've got to invest in real-time tracking technology because something that should take 5 weeks is suddenly going to become 7 weeks. Or some things that you think there is a perfectly good route for is suddenly going to dry up and the price is going to go from $2,000 to $20,000. You have to be predicting this. You cannot wait for it to happen. You need to be communicating internally and communicating with your customers and suppliers so that you can deal with it. Let's talk about technology and its integration. One of the challenges that we've seen for a long time now is about um, adopting and integrating technologies. And it's even more apparent when you have a globalization of organizations. So when one company buys another company or they merge, you're not just bringing together two companies and two cultures, you're also bringing together technologies that often don't want to talk to each other. And it never gets dealt with. And what we need to think about is how we embrace AI to cope with that digitalization of those two supply chains, the connectivity of it. But one of the most important things that has never changed for 30 years is the importance of data and cleaning data and managing data. Because if you don't have a control of what your data is, then you will never, it doesn't matter what capability of technology you have, it's going to be reading rubbish. And if it's reading rubbish, your answer will be derived from the rubbish it's read. So it is important from a technology perspective that technology is there to support your processes. It should be a complementary to your processes, and the organizational design should also support that. So it's kind of a three-sided triangle of people, process, and technology. If you think you're going to introduce new technology and all of your problems will be solved, then you're going to be sadly disappointed. And that's why almost 80% of transformations and digital transformations fail, is because people fail to think about the three sides of that and think they're going to go and buy the latest technology and everything's solved. But you need to invest in your culture, your people, your training, and you've got to have the right processes that support the technology that you're introducing. Now let's talk about environmental and regulatory compliance. You know, this is going up and down. I mean, we have spent a number of years now where organizations have been investing heavily in driving towards environmental and regulatory compliance. What we're now seeing is the political mood music changing people's priorities. We're seeing a number of organizations that are stepping back from their commitments. We're even seeing some companies that are doing the reverse of lying about their activity to try and impress people. They are keeping it quiet because they think that in some areas, if we talk about the green activity that we're doing, it'll be seen as woke, or it will be seen as driving the wrong agenda and not driving towards profitability. And one of the things that we are facing, though, is when you see a 10% tariff on everything, when you see 25% on cars, when you see huge punitive tariffs being put on certain countries that will come back again in 90 days if they're not negotiated, it is going to change the priorities of some companies. And we need to make sure that we are armed with the right answers when the organization says, look, we can't afford this year. And one of the things that the Alchemy Network is doing is trying to ensure that people understand what is the consequence of not doing it this year, because we are running out of time. The science is clear. We need to fix this. Another thing that's important that should be a red line. There are still 60 million people involved in modern day slavery. It's not acceptable. Red line, and everybody should be challenging this. I mean, a great example is photovoltaics, solar panels. Over 50% of the materials for those solar panels that are being celebrated around the world of driving our green agenda, the materials are being come from an area of China that is being mined and managed by the Uyghurs. So that green revolution, a big part of it is being fueled on slavery, and we need to stop that. It cannot be acceptable in today's society that we have slavery anywhere. And one of the people we partner with is the University of Nottingham, that is using satellite imagery to monitor cobalt mines and nickel mines and brickworks in East India to make sure that people are behaving in an appropriate way. And it's something we are certainly looking to champion through our network. Cybersecurity risks. So we're investing in all of this technology and this digitalization, but we're seeing a big increase in cybersecurity as those who are creating a threat to us are increasing their activity in this area. And we need to be guarded against that. I mean, the industry that I used to be working in packaging, it was attacked about 4 or 5 years ago. Now, we were quite well guarded as an organization and weren't really affected by it. But 5 companies, global companies, were. And at least a couple of them announced that it had affected them to the tune of 50 million in costs as a result of the downtime that was generated through cybersecurity. So you have to be mindful of this in your supply chains, in how you connect with your suppliers, because there are many ways into your business, even through your vending machines. If it is an integrated vending machine that thinks and orders itself, then that is a way in to your systems for those who would wish you harm. Another important one is inventory management. Now, I'm from the era of just in time, so I was brought up working for Toyota in my early career, and just in time and Kanban, that whole process was brilliant, but it is under stress right now. When you think about these huge swings that we've talked about, and the impact that that has on having the right stock is quite incredible. And predictability is key here, and thinking about what is going to be happening to the demand of my product, and do I have a sustainable supply chain that can cope with this change in demand? And what is the impact on price? And can I afford to buy the product at this price if the sales price of what we manufacture goes down significantly? Inventory will never go away as an issue, and you can't just pile it high, because if you pile it high, you will have the potential of quality defect issues. So when you find a problem, the principle of just in time is, if something happens, you've only got a few hours of production that you need to throw away. If you've got 6 months of product and you realize that you had a defect in it, that's a very expensive mistake that you have to then deal with. And similarly, if you don't have enough product and demand increases, then you're going to have shortages. During the peak in the early days of COVID, um, we saw e-commerce packaging explode. You know, one of our suppliers that has a tick on their boxes, um, they went from 100 million square meters to 700 million square meters in a year, because the demand for online delivery exploded because no one was going to the shops. And that's not something that you can just turn on overnight. You have to um, you have to be working closely with both your suppliers and your customers to understand what is happening in your supply chain. Um, Sustainability and ethical sourcing. You know, I've talked a little bit about the importance of ethical sourcing and the challenge um, that we face. And I put in bold here, um, is the um, is the focus on this going to go down as a priority due to tariffs? It shouldn't. You know, we should have red lines when it comes to ethical sourcing in our supply chains, but um, organizations are going to be in panic mode right now, and the trillions that was wiped off the stock market over the last 7 days, that has recovered a little bit yesterday and today. But this is going to cause the boardrooms to start thinking, look, we've got 90 days now. What's the impact? And if you focus now just on the price and on the cost of the supply chain, and start forgetting all the work that you've done in ethical sourcing, it's a bad day. So we need to make sure that we as professionals don't lose sight of the things that we have been doing over the last 10, 15 years to improve this situation. Rising costs. Um, During COVID, we saw an incredible explosion of raw materials, of labor, of energy, of transportation. We saw shipping rates that usually were $2,000 to $3,000 hit $25,000. We saw commodities go up by 10,000%. Some of the rare minerals. Um, we saw orange juice over the last 5 years go up by 500%. Um, when when the world's largest supplier of wheat invades the world's fifth largest supplier of wheat and corn, you're going to have a problem. 90% of the world's sunflower oil that is exported came from Ukraine. If suddenly there is a shock in that supply chain, you will have an impact. So what is your roadmap for India supply chain management solution? Well, I think right now, to be honest, India as a country has an incredible opportunity. First of all, they have amazingly talented people. They have one of the most educated workforces in the world. The amount of people that are leaving with high national and double degrees in India is a ridiculous amount of money. of people. And India as a country, I think, can take advantage of the fallout between North America and China. So I I believe that that we're going to enter a period. I mean, India's growth has been incredible anyway over the last 5, 10 years, but I think we're going to have a renaissance of that, and we're going to have an increase in India as a country, um, and certainly that's where I'm putting my bets. I think India is going to come out of this very strongly, um, for many reasons. You know that um, the a lot of the world's business is done in English, and most people in India can speak very good English. But if they can't, AI capability enables them to be able to connect now. So yeah, in answer to the question, I think there's a huge opportunity for India. Now, this globalization versus regionalization, this is going to be turbo boosted right now by the tariffs. Trump came out again yesterday and said, move now, move your production now, move it back to America. My question is, who's going to do the work? And I've seen a lot of memes of seeing Americans assemble iPhones and making Nike trainers. I can't see it, but I think what we will see is a is a um, is a spread of the capability. We'll see movement of assemblies. We'll see parts being made in multiple regions and then reassembled elsewhere. They have to. If you're an organization that was only buying raw materials from China, then right now you're going to be hurting. Um, so um, I think the tariffs are going to accelerate this um, this thing that was already happening. So let's wait and see. But again, OptiLogic, the organization I spoke about, gives you the opportunity to be able um, to ask what if, to put in your supply chain and model it and say, if I change that and that price and that tariff, what does my supply chain look like? Do I have warehouses in the right place? Am I manufacturing in the right location? And it will adjust your supply chain based on the scenarios that you face at that time. So certainly well worth a look out there. Now, let's talk about future-proofing tariffs. Tariffs bring an opportunity as well. I talked about how I think for the rest of the world, it brings an opportunity for India, um, but it will create increased costs, and with that comes a reassessment of where you're importing products from, and global shipping routes are going to change, and your supply chain needs to be rethought of and reconfigured. And we need to have a think about how we manage that complexity of change. So there's another question come in. For supply chain optimization, there's a lot of emphasis on automating processes, as we discussed. To what extent can the implementation of AI add value in this area? Moreover, is it feasible to fully rely on AI to simplify and manage supply chain operations? I think the situation with AI is that every company has a different view of where they are willing to draw the line of where the AI makes a decision. So there are some companies that have gone all the way to AI. Demand is created. We're going to go out and look where we should buy it from. They're going to send out an RFP. The RFPs will come in. They'll evaluate them. They will negotiate with the suppliers, and then they will draft and send an order and a contract, and it will be signed off. No human intervention at all. That is going on today. However, there are a lot of organizations and CPOs that fear going that far. So the line is being drawn further along. Now, the more strategic the supplier you have or product that you have, the nearer you are to the human to AI. AI is going to be used as a tool to benefit organizations. Now, A.T. Kearney did a study towards the end of last year, and what they found was that 56% of companies were building an AI solution internally with their own IT people. So they were building it for themselves. 40% of organizations were building it internally with external experts, helping them to build it. Only 4% were buying off-the-shelf AI products. And the reason for that is fear. The reason for that is I want to look what the world's doing. I want that knowledge to come into my organization so I make better informed decisions. But what I do not want is any of my proprietary information to be out there for the world to see. I don't want my contracts to be seen by others. I don't want who I'm buying product from to be seen by others. I don't want my specifications or pricing to be seen by others. So that fear of AI is preventing some of the accelerated growth. Now, should we allow AI to make all decisions? I think we haven't proved that it's going to be without mistake at the moment. The problem is the reason we don't have automated cars that are driving themselves at the moment is again through fear. You know, I think, and I've been in a car driving itself, and it will not speed, and it will not break the rules, and it can see 360 degrees, and the chance of it having an accident is probably a lot lower than a human. But the problem is, if it has one accident in 100, it's worse than the 100. Mentally, we're not ready for that AI to have that one accident. So we are going to see a bumpy road when it comes to the deployment of it. However, just to finish off and square that, the AI that is helping us to determine demand and review our supply chain, that is ready, and we should be using that, and we should be implementing and embracing that. If I personally was still in business, I'd still want the AI to tell me I've reviewed and this is what I think the strategy should be. I'd still want to look at the strategy and say, I agree, you're right. I wouldn't want the button to be pressed in isolation without me seeing it. I'd still want it. I'd embrace it, but I'd want to see the answer before the button was pressed. There's another question coming, interesting stats, but would be interesting to appropriate the stats content across each continent and regionally. Kindly share the link to the source for the AI deployment strategy and supply chain across companies that you referred to. So this was an article that was written by A.T. Kearney, and it was across their global network of clients, and they didn't break it down by region, but they were all global organizations of greater than a billion turnover. So they are probably Western of their ownership, but globally impacted would be my my answer to that question. So we've got another point here. So Amazon cancels some inventory orders from China after the tariffs. Impact across the supply chain versus demand supply chain reaction. So exactly, it's all of the boats were planned for next week and the week after and the week after that, full of product to satisfy those warehouses, and they've realized that we can't sell those products with 124% added to them, or we can't adjust our supply chain in time. So if it's coming across on a boat and you don't know what the tariff's going to be when it hits the land, then it's better to pause right now. If the price elasticity of a product is such that the consumer will not pay just about anything for the product, then you can't have such huge swings where you go from 20% to 125% without having an impact. And the impact of organizations, Amazon is the headline one. But if we think that other organizations aren't doing the same, we're kidding themselves. So what is going to happen is the supply chains across the globe are supplying each other right now. So China to the US, China to Europe, India to Europe, India to China, Vietnam to India. That they're all moving across. What we will see is an adjustment, and over time it will settle down. So China will not necessarily be supplying India. Sorry, will be not necessarily be supplying America. Countries like India will take up that slack. But the countries that India was supplying will be supplied by China. The supply chain will adjust. And the net effect is that America is still getting their goods indirectly from China. It's a little bit like California closing down their dirty coal-powered electricity and saying, we're a green state, we have no coal-powered electricity, and then importing their electricity from Nevada from a coal-powered furnace. It is nothing's changed. We have one world, and we will see China supplying other areas, and indirectly the supply chain will just adjust, but it will take time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. But because of how complex and capable our supply chain optimizers are now, it will not take as long as these things have in the past. It will be months and weeks rather than years for it to readjust and to settle down. I've got a couple more slides. So some of the things that we should be having as strategies to go against tariff challenges. So I've talked about diversifying your sourcing, relocate production where you can, leverage trade agreements. So another important thing is around adjusting what you code your product at. So some organizations are looking at their product and saying, okay, well, the cost of the product that is sold at the shop is $100, but the cost to manufacture is 20. The other 80 is associated to marketing. So marketing has a different tariff to the manufacturing process. So organizations are adjusting how they are using tariffs to get the product in at a more cost-effective way. Negotiating with suppliers is one option, but when the numbers we're talking about hit the 25, 40, 50%, it's a state of force majeure, and you end up eating what's put in front of you. When energy in Europe went up by 2,000% a couple of summers ago, everybody had to eat it, including the consumer. I think we've covered the rest of them. So I think that's it from my presentation. This is the Alchemy Network. It is an app-based community where we're talking about these type of things on a daily basis, and you can post and share and comment. We have a growing membership, so we have members from 170 countries, and you are welcome to join. This is how it has grown. We are 11 months old now, so you can see where our members are, and you can translate every part of the content to 150 languages through the Google Chrome. We'd love to have you all as members, but these are some of the partners that we have that are sponsoring it: Carney, EcoVadis, universities, and yeah, that's the QR code, so as you can join. So I'm going to pause there, Sarah, and I think I've covered what we said I would cover today, and I'm happy to take any questions. There's another one come through here. So what AI and ML becoming increasingly, with AI and ML becoming increasingly integrated in supply chain, what key skills or mindsets should young professionals like me develop to stay relevant? Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the fact that you're young, you're already relevant, because old people like me, we've gone through a time where systems were you'd implement a system and you'd live with it for 10 years and then you would reinvest in a new system. You have grown up during a period where things change every 12 months, 18 months, now even more frequently, 6 months. Your apps are being updated weekly, some of them with new things being added to them, and you're having to rethink and reimagine all the time. So your mind has already been wired to constant change. So one of the things that I think is really important right now is reverse mentoring is just as important as mentoring. And you guys are used to learning and unlearning and relearning. And that's going to be so important during this period because we don't have these luxuries of a stable supply chain. You look at the last 5 years, all of those things that I talked about associated uh, with wars and with COVID and with supply disruption and with labor disruption and with food disruption and with inflation. It's all happened over the last 5 years. And now we have tariffs thrown in on top of that. It's a crazy, it really is a crazy period that we face. Um, Spot on, uh, the tangentially benefication will ensue, but where do you see Africa benefiting? It depends where in Africa, really, because Africa isn't, it's one continent, but it is many countries that are behaving and performing in a different way. But there are pockets of incredible opportunity in Africa. I mean, one example is Botswana. The education level in Botswana, um, and um, and the potential growth of that economy is huge. The GDP has been averaging, I think, 5% in there. So I think Africa has to, like I talked about with India, embrace the opportunity um, and think about how do I how do I take advantage of this friction that will not be solved overnight between North America and China. Too much has been said already for it all to be, developed over shaking hands, because supply chain owners will look at it and think, I can't rely on this anymore. It's not going to work for me uh, to um, to have my supply wholly controlled by individuals that can disrupt it overnight. So Africa, like India, like Vietnam, like the Middle East, needs to think about how can I take advantage of this? How can I step in and create an opportunity? So Marcus said, I've read that 80% of AI projects fail or do not fully deliver. What are the reasons why procurement supply? Well, I'm not sure about 80% of AI projects, but absolutely 80% of digitalization and transformation projects fail. And the reason for that is if you think you're just going to drop new technology in and not train anybody and not prepare the culture and not have C-suite backing and not put organizational process in place that support it, then it will fail. You need technology, you need people, you need process, and you need governance and control sitting in the middle of that. And that's something we talk about a lot on the Alchemy Network. We call it the four-sided triangle. But the reason it fails is because people fail to prepare. If I if I bought the best computer in the world and gave it to my mother, who is 80 and suffering from Parkinson's, and expected her to suddenly become proficient, it's going to fail. So there is an organization capability perspective. My mother is not ready for that. Whatever computer I buy her, I'm still only going to see half her face on FaceTime, because it doesn't matter what the computer is, she doesn't get it. Now, that's why it fails. I remember when we implemented SAP 30 years ago, and we were using Capgemini at the time. And Capgemini, we selected people for the transformation. And Capgemini said to us, look, we need your best people for this. This is serious what you're trying to do here. You're trying to revolutionize the whole business, and we need your best people. And if I look at the people in this room, they said it feels like you've walked around the building with a bell saying, bring out your dead. Digital transformation, AI, you need your best talent. And the best talent that organizations have are you people. They are the younger generation who can think differently. So when you have an opportunity to be involved in one of these transformations, grab it, take control, own it, and be involved and use it as an opportunity. That's what I would say anyway. Uh, for a fresh engineer who needs his career on supply chain, which skill set is required for this AI generation?